The heist happened at JFK Airport, New York, on December 11, 1978. Around $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewelry was stolen. It became one of the most famous Mafia-linked robberies in U.S. history, and the money was never recovered. In the early hours of December 11, 1978, while New York City was still asleep, a group of masked men entered a cargo building at John F. Kennedy International Airport. They were not ordinary thieves. They knew exactly where to go. They knew exactly who to scare. And they knew exactly what was waiting inside. Inside the Lufthansa cargo terminal was something every criminal dreamed of: millions of dollars in cash, flown in from overseas, sitting inside one of the busiest airports in America. In less than 2 hours, the robbers would walk away with around $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewelry, making it the largest cash robbery in the United States at that time. But the most shocking part of the Lufthansa heist was not the robbery itself. It was what happened after. Because after the money disappeared, so did the men connected to it. One by one, people linked to the heist were murdered, vanished, or silenced. The robbery that was supposed to make them rich became a death sentence. This is the story of the Lufthansa heist, the airport robbery linked to Mafia history, betrayal, greed, and one of the darkest chapters in New York organized crime. To understand the Lufthansa heist, you first have to understand New York in the late 1970s. The city was rough, loud, dangerous, and full of opportunity, especially for organized crime. At street level, New York had bookmakers, loan sharks, hijackers, corrupt workers, stolen goods dealers, and mafia crews operating in neighborhoods across the city. Airports were especially valuable. JFK Airport was not just a place where passengers arrived and left. It was a gateway for cargo, money, jewelry, foreign currency, luxury goods. And where there is money moving quietly, there are people watching. For mafia-connected criminals, airport cargo terminals were gold mines. The security was not like today. Many workers knew each other. Some employees had gambling debts. Some could be pressured. Some could be bought. And some were already working with criminals. The Lufthansa cargo terminal became a target because it handled cash shipments from overseas. Money would arrive from West Germany and other locations, then be stored temporarily before being transferred to banks. For most people, this was just airport business. For criminals, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Every major heist needs one thing before anything else: inside information. The Lufthansa heist did not begin with guns. It began with a secret. The story goes that a bookmaker named Martin Krugman learned about large cash shipments coming through Lufthansa's cargo terminal. The information reportedly came from an airport worker named Louis Werner, who had gambling debts and knew details about Lufthansa's money movement. Werner and another worker had already been involved in stealing foreign currency from Lufthansa in 1976, according to historical accounts. Werner knew the building. He knew the procedures. He knew when the money came in. He knew where it was stored. And most importantly, he knew the security weaknesses. This kind of information was priceless. But information alone was not enough. Someone needed to organize the robbery. Someone with criminal experience. Someone feared. Someone connected. That man was believed to be James "Jimmy the Gent" Burke. Burke was not a made member of the Mafia because of his Irish background, but he was deeply connected to the Lucky's crime family. He had a reputation for violence, discipline, and control. In the underworld, he was the kind of man people did not say no to. and when the Lufthansa opportunity reached him, it was too big to ignore. Jimmy Burke understood something very clearly. A robbery of this size could not be done by amateurs. It needed men who could follow orders, move fast, scare witnesses, and keep quiet afterward. The alleged crew connected to the heist included several dangerous names from New York's criminal world. Among them were Tommy DeSimone, Angelo Sepe, Louis Cafora, Joe Manri, Paolo Licastri, and others believed to have played roles in the robbery. Each man had a job. Some would enter the terminal. Some would control the workers. Some would guard the doors. Some would load the money. Some would drive. And one man, Parnell Stacks Edwards, allegedly had a simple but crucial task: get rid of the getaway van. That job would become one of the biggest mistakes in the entire story. The crew believed they were going after around $2 million. But when they finally opened the vault area, they found much more. The real amount was nearly $6 million in cash and jewelry. That changed everything. Because a small robbery creates suspicion. But a robbery of nearly $6 million creates panic. It creates headlines. It creates FBI pressure. And inside the Mafia world, it creates greed. December 11, 1978. Around 3 o'clock in the morning. The Lufthansa cargo building at JFK Airport was quiet. Most of New York was asleep. The airport was still operating, but the cargo area had a different atmosphere: fewer people, fewer eyes, and more shadows. Then the robbers arrived. They entered the cargo building wearing masks and carrying weapons. They moved quickly, like they already knew the layout. This was not a confused robbery. It was planned. The robbers rounded up Lufthansa employees and forced them at gunpoint to cooperate. Workers were told not to trigger alarms. They were ordered to stay calm. The crew knew the names of some employees. That terrified the workers even more. It meant the robbers had inside information. This was not random. This was personal. The robbers moved toward the area where the cash was stored. They forced access to the secured location. Then came the moment they had planned for. The money was there. Stacks of cash. Bags. Boxes. Foreign currency. Jewelry. More than they expected. The crew began loading the money into the van. Minute by minute, the biggest cash robbery in American history was unfolding inside an airport cargo building. Outside, planes continued to move. Passengers traveled. The city slept. But inside that terminal, millions of dollars were disappearing. The robbery reportedly lasted around 64 minutes according to later reports, though accounts vary slightly on exact timing. Then the robbers left. No shootout. No dramatic chase. No immediate capture. They simply drove away with millions. For a moment, it looked like the perfect crime. But perfect crimes usually fall apart because of imperfect people. After the robbery, the crew had one urgent problem. The getaway van. It had to disappear. It had to be destroyed, hidden, or crushed. It could not be found by police. That job allegedly belonged to Parnell Stacks Edwards. His task was simple. Take the van. Get rid of it. Do not leave evidence. But instead, the van was not properly disposed of. It was discovered by police in Brooklyn. According to accounts, it had been illegally parked, and this mistake helped investigators connect the vehicle to the robbery. Britannica's summary notes that the parked getaway vehicle became one of the key failures after the heist. For Jimmy Burke, this was unforgivable. The van was not just a vehicle. It was a risk. A giant piece of evidence sitting in the street. And in the Mafia world, mistakes like that were not handled with warnings. They were handled with violence. Soon after, Edwards was killed. And his death was only the beginning. The Lufthansa heist had now entered its second phase. Not the robbery. The cleanup. The crew had pulled off the impossible. They had stolen millions from one of the busiest airports in the world. But now they had a new problem. How do you hide that much money? The stolen cash could not be spent openly. The FBI was watching. Police were questioning people. The media was covering the robbery. Every flashy purchase, every new car, every gambling spree could attract attention. And that is exactly what began to happen. Some people connected to the robbery allegedly became careless. They wanted their share. They wanted to spend. They wanted to talk. And Jimmy Burke, according to many accounts, became paranoid. He believed the people around him could expose him. He believed witnesses could talk. He believed greed would destroy everyone. So instead of simply dividing the money and disappearing, the situation became darker. The robbery had created too many loose ends. And Burke allegedly decided to remove them. One by one. History.com describes the aftermath of the Lufthansa heist as a trail of killings connected to paranoia, betrayal, and fear inside the criminal world. The men who thought they were about to become rich were now being hunted. Not by police first, but by each other. After the Lufthansa heist, people connected to the robbery started dying. Stax Edwards was killed after failing to dispose of the van. Others connected to the planning and execution of the heist were murdered or disappeared. Some were suspected of talking. Some were suspected of being careless. Some may have simply known too much. This was the brutal logic of organized crime. A man who helps you steal money can also help the police understand how you did it. A man who knows your secrets can become a witness. A man who wants a bigger share can become a threat. And in the world surrounding Jimmy Burke, threats did not last long. The murders created fear across the underworld. The FBI knew people were dying. Investigators knew the heist crew was being erased. But proving who ordered what was extremely difficult. No one wanted to testify. Witnesses were terrified. Mafia associates stayed silent. And the stolen money remained missing. The Lufthansa heist became more than a robbery investigation. It became a murder investigation. A mafia investigation. A mystery that stretched across decades. One reason the Lufthansa heist became so famous is because of its connection to Henry Hill. Henry Hill was a real-life Lucky's crime family associate. He later became an informant. His life inspired the book Wise Guy and the famous film Goodfellas. The Lufthansa heist became part of that wider story, a symbol of the glamour, danger, and collapse of the mafia lifestyle. But the real story was far darker than any movie scene. There was no happy ending. The men involved did not retire peacefully with bags of cash. Many died. Some went to prison for other crimes. Some disappeared from public view. Jimmy Burke himself was never officially charged for the Lufthansa heist, but he remained widely believed to have been the mastermind. He later died in prison in 1996 while serving time for unrelated crimes. The legend of the heist grew because it had everything: an airport, millions in cash, inside men, mafia crews, betrayal, murders, and a mystery that refused to die. But behind the legend were real victims, real violence, and real consequences. The FBI investigated the Lufthansa heist for years. But the case was incredibly difficult. The crew was criminally experienced. The money disappeared quickly. Witnesses were scared. And many suspects were dead. Only one person was convicted directly in connection with the heist, Louis Werner, the Lufthansa employee who helped provide inside information. For decades, the case remained one of the most famous unsolved Mafia-linked robberies in American history. Then, in 2014, more than 35 years after the robbery, federal authorities made new arrests connected to the case. One of the men charged was Vincent Acero, an alleged Bonanno crime family figure. The FBI alleged he had been involved in the Lufthansa robbery. But in 2015, Acero was acquitted. It was another major blow to prosecutors trying to close the case. The stolen cash and jewelry were never recovered. The mystery remained. Who got the money? Where did it go? How much did Jimmy Burke keep? How much was spent? How much was hidden? No one knows for sure. And that is why the Lufthansa heist still fascinates people today. Because the robbery ended in 1978. But the mystery never really ended. The Lufthansa heist was not just another robbery. It exposed how organized crime could penetrate major transportation systems. It showed how inside information could turn a secure cargo terminal into a target. It showed how greed could destroy a criminal crew from within. And it showed the violent reality behind Mafia mythology. The public often sees Mafia stories as stylish. Sharp suits. Big cars. Expensive dinners. Power. Respect. But the Lufthansa heist showed the truth underneath. Fear. Paranoia. Betrayal. Bodies. The men who pulled off the robbery were not heroes. They were criminals who brought violence into the lives of everyone around them. The heist became legendary because it was bold. But it became infamous because of what followed. The money made headlines. The murders made history. On a cold December morning in 1978, millions of dollars vanished from JFK Airport. For a few hours, the men behind the Lufthansa heist may have believed they had beaten the system. They had fooled airport security. They had escaped the police. They had stolen a fortune. But they had not escaped greed. They had not escaped paranoia. And many of them would not escape death. The Lufthansa heist remains one of the most famous robberies in criminal history because it was not just a story about stolen money. It was a story about what money does to people who already live without trust. A story where the perfect crime became a mafia bloodbath. And decades later, the question still remains, where did the money go? If you found this story interesting, subscribe for more true crime, history, and power stories from the darkest corners of the past.